Mangwanani mwalelepo vukenjani class whatever Africa. Welcome to Africa. Good morning. The news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. Speaking of which, we'll be having a conversation with Mike Sichula in Zambia as he brings us the news on the ground there amongst other stories. You are joined by Ashwin Berry and Glenora Shipura on a Friday. Good morning, Glenora. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. How are you, Ashwin?
Good. I love the pink.
Thank you.
Breast cancer awareness.
Yes.
Truly
yes.
important. Yes,
very important. Now, today is also a Friday.
Yes, indeed.
I'm excited.
We love Fridays.
And it's also World Animation Day. What's your favorite animation?
Ooh, Archer, Bob's Burgers. I've got several.
Oh, wow.
Rick and Morty, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like
we both like Rick and Morty.
There
yes.
we go, there's one.
Well, today is World Animation Day. Animation is everywhere these days, and most of us have been raised on it, starting with our Saturday morning cartoons that we enjoyed with our sugary bowl of cereal, straight through to our favorite video games and movies of today. Our view of the world has often been shaped by this amazing art form. Let's take a look at this video on just that.
Today is Friday, the 28th of October, and these are the top stories. South Africa prosecutors drop mass rape charges. 14 suspects accused of raping and sexually assaulting a group of women in South Africa in July have been acquitted of those charges. The National Prosecuting Authority said yesterday that DNA evidence taken from the suspects, described as illegal minors, failed to link them to the crime. Upon consultation with the complainants on the matter and evidence at hand, it became apparent we cannot proceed with prosecution. We have insufficient evidence to continue with the case, said NPA spokesperson Phindile Mjodowane. Now, the suspects were arrested and charged after some of the victims pointed them out as the alleged rapists during a police identity parade. 8 women had been filming a music video on 30 July near a disused mine outside Johannesburg when they and the film crew were attacked by a large group of men. Reports of the gang rape by the so-called Zamazamas, a colloquial term used for illegal miners, led to violent protests by communities in the area where the mine is located. It also led to xenophobic rhetoric and threats against undocumented immigrants. Although the group have been cleared on the sexual violence and robbery charges, the NPA says the suspects will be charged for allegedly contravening immigration laws. The matter will be heard on the 1st of November.
Still in South Africa, no evidence of certain terrorism threat, says South African government. South Africa's minister in the presidency, Mondli Gungembele, has downplayed threats of a terrorist attack scheduled for Sandton, Johannesburg this weekend. I've checked this with my security unit and we're a bit disturbed. This alarm has been going on, but up to this point, it is not backed by any evidence, said Gungembele. Gungembele's office oversees state security, which reports directly to the president after the scrapping of the intelligence ministry last August. The U.S. government issued a terrorist attack warning that could target large gatherings in Sandton, Johannesburg this weekend. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa's spokesperson Vincent Magwenya said the South African government has noted the terror alert issued by the U.S. Embassy on its website. This is part of the U.S. government's standard communication to its citizens. It is the responsibility of the South African security forces to ensure that all people within our country feel safe. Now, law enforcement agencies continue to monitor for any threats to our citizens or nation and our sovereignty. Threats are assessed continuously and are acted upon to ensure the safety of all. Should the need arise, the South African government will be the first to inform the public about any imminent threat, said Magwenya.
Yes, one would think that a local government should be able to inform its own locals first. Moving on, Burundi declares border with Rwanda open more than 5 years after closure. Burundi's Foreign Affairs Minister officially declared that the border between the East African country and Rwanda has been reopened. All the borders of Burundi with its neighboring countries are open, the ministry tweeted, without much detail on the 22nd of October. On October 25, Minister Albert Shingiro confirmed in a press conference the border reopening with Rwanda. He also indicated that Burundi maintained its position of calling on Kigali to return coup plotters it alleges fled there after trying to overthrow former President Pierre Nkurunziza in 2015. The border between Burundi and Rwanda had been closed for almost 6 years, first amid political tensions and then by the COVID-19 pandemic. Rwanda, for its part, reopened its border with Burundi several months ago. The border reopening comes after President Ruto William of Kenya urged his East African community partner states to knock off barriers that impede trade across the bloc.
Social media companies urge to block hate speech linked to Tigray conflict. With talks underway in South Africa to end the 2-year Tigray civil war in Ethiopia, there are calls for social media platforms to control hate speech that could stir tempers between the two warring parties. Since the beginning of hostilities in November 2020, social media, mostly Twitter, has become a battleground to control the narrative. On one side, there is the Ethiopian government and its supporters, and on the other, there are Tigrayan activists and supporters. Both sides have attempted to present their version of the story to English-speaking audiences. In most cases, hate speech is used, and those targeted are civilians. In a statement, the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum called on social media companies to work towards aiding the multi-pronged approach to bring about peace in Ethiopia. The organization said every effort needs to be made to reduce the capacity of and impose costs on those who commit mass atrocities.
Now, Ebola infects 6 school kids in Uganda as contagion fear grows. 6 children in Uganda's capital have tested positive for Ebola, the health minister said on Wednesday, marking a serious escalation of the outbreak declared just over a month ago. The children, who attended 3 different schools in Kampala, are among at least 15 people in the city confirmed to have been infected with Ebola, according to a statement by Health Minister Jane Ruth Aseng. Now, the children are members of a family exposed to the disease by a man who traveled from one Ebola-hit district, sought treatment in Kampala, and died there, the statement said. Fears that Ebola could spread far from the outbreak's epicenter compelled authorities to impose an ongoing lockdown, including nighttime curfews on 2 of the 5 districts reporting Ebola cases on October 16. Now, the head of the Uganda Medical Association on Tuesday urged health authorities to impose a lockdown in Kampala, a stringent measure that the country's president has previously said he doesn't want to implement.
Now, wrapping up our top stories, Chinese cities tighten curbs on growing COVID outbreaks. Chinese cities from Wuhan in central China to Xining in the northwest are doubling down on COVID-19 curbs, sealing up buildings and locking down districts in a scramble to halt widening outbreaks. China on Thursday reported a 3rd straight day of more than 1,000 new COVID cases nationwide, a modest tally compared with the tens of thousands per day that sent Shanghai into a full-blown lockdown earlier this year, but enough to trigger more restrictions across the country. China's COVID caseload has remained small by global standards, but its ultra-strict and disruptive containment measures this year against the highly transmissible Omicron variant have weighed heavily on the world's 2nd largest economy, rattled financial markets, and angered the public.
That brings us to the end of our top stories on Africa. Good morning. Stay with us because after the break, we'll be talking to Mike Sichula in Zambia.
Active Kids is an initiative under the MyZone brand that aims to provide exciting and easy activities and fun stories. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na. Active Kids, where we actively invest in your future.
Now, here at Africa Good Morning, we pride ourselves at bringing you the latest news from the source on the ground. Good morning, Mike Sichula.
Africa, good morning. I'm very well, thank you.
Now, I understand that the World Bank has approved $275 million to Zambia to help the country recover from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Can you get into this story?
Yes, the money is coming at a time when authorities have eased the restrictions on COVID, such as the wearing of masks and also the spraying in public facilities as a way of ensuring that commerce and trade begins to move normally. So this money is coming at a time when Zambian businesses have also been empowered by the government, when the government is also moving into helping people to get into agriculture so that they contribute to national development. So according to this statement, the money is meant to ensure that businesses that had collapsed during the peak of the COVID pandemic are brought to restart their operations and also encourage other new players to get into business and contribute to the development of the country. So this money has been acknowledged by the Minister of Finance, who has promised the World Bank that it is going to go to the intended purpose of reviving businesses that were affected by the COVID pandemic.
All right, Mike. Now, authorities have stopped the verification of grade 12 results. Could you please expand on that?
Yes, what has been happening is that the government has announced the recruitment of personnel in defense forces, that is the Zambia National Service and the Zambia Army and the Zambia Defense Force. So what has been happening is that before these institutions accept the results, you need to have your results verified by the examining body, the Examinations Council of Zambia, at a fee. This is not cheap. It is coming at a fee. As the picture that you saw, as you can see there, those are number of people that are lined up. Now you can imagine that you finished your secondary school and the Examinations Council of Zambia issued you with the school certificate. Then why should you again go back to have the same certificate being verified by the examining body? So there was a public concern for members of the public, and also they thought this exercise was being used to siphon money from members of the public. Hence, authorities through the defense minister, he has said that they have agreed with the Ministry of Education to put to halt the verification of results and let applicants apply without having their examination results verified.
Now, in your next story, the president is encouraging filmmakers to create stories that depict the ordinary Zambian. Can you get into the story?
Yes, President Hichilema was at a film called Can You See Us? It is a movie that has been done by a Zambian movie producer depicting the life of persons living with albinism. You and I, you know that persons living with albinism have come under attack in Zambia, Malawi, and other countries. So this movie was, the movie titled Can You See Us is aimed at creating awareness on people not to attack persons living with albinism. And President Hakainde Hichilema, was in attendance when this film was premiered in Lusaka district. And during that time, it did encourage Zambian filmmakers to say that Zambia has got unique stories, and many filmmakers need to take advantage of this and use the skills to contribute to national development by creating movies that are going to tell the African stories to the rest of the world.
All right, I've been quite interested in Hakainde Hichilema's engagement, engagement with the youth. He's been very active with the arts. All right, now, finally, we move over to sports as a Zambian couple has been crowned African Rally champions. Please tell us about that as concisely as possible.
Yes, the couple comprising of Larry Gomez and Juris Gomez emerged victorious to wrap the African circuit as champions. You can see them there in the pictures. The rally is something that was happened during the course of last week, and the victory, according to President Hakainde Hichilema, says the victory could not have come at a better time than now during the countries as it was celebrating 58 years of independence. So this is something that has encouraged many sports rally fans to rally behind the sport, and also to show to it that Zambia is not just good at football, but there are also other sports personnel that are good even on the wheels. Like you can see the couple getting the victory there as the African rally champions.
Very beautiful scenes indeed, and I like how you just snuck in that Zambia is good at football. Yes, you are. We won't deny. All right. Thank you very much for bringing us the stories from Zambia, Mike.
Thank you very much, Africa. Good morning.
Africa, good morning indeed. Now, if you're hoping for an Africa good day, you might want to check out the weather predictions up next.
In Business 7, you get news on current economic, financial, and business matters in Namibia. The weekly show features interviews with experts and in-depth analysis of burning issues in a way that caters for ordinary Namibians and business connoisseurs alike. For news-related or advertising queries, please contact B7 at synergy.com.na.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. Heading into the economic news stories. South Africa to swallow part of Eskom's debt to keep it afloat. South Africa's treasury vowed on Wednesday to take over a portion of Eskom's multi-billion-dollar debt to ensure the embattled energy utilities' viability and curb the energy crisis that has put brakes on growth. For more than a decade and a half, it has battled to adequately power up the continent's most industrialized economy. The debt takeover, once finalized, together with the reforms, will ensure that Eskom is financially sustainable, according to Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana. Now, sweeping power outages caused by failures at aging and poorly maintained infrastructure at the state-owned company, which provides almost all of South Africa's electricity, have severely hampered economic growth.
In our next story, revenue leakages in tourism deeply affect African economies, experts say. Now, for every $100 spent on a vacation tour by a tourist from a developed country, only around $5 actually stays in a developing country destination's economy, translating into a 95% loss in revenue. This was announced by the United Nations World Tourism Organization's Regional Department for Africa Director, Alicia Grandcourt. Speaking on the third day of the 5th Africa Tourism Leadership Forum at the Grand Palm Hotel International Convention Center in Gaborone, Grandcourt says for Africa to realize the real value of tourism in the continent, it needs to deal with these revenue leakages.
All right, that brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Up next, economic indicators. Now, yesterday, the T20 Cricket World Cup, with 1 ball left and 1 run needed to win, Zimbabwe managed to overcome the mountain that is Pakistan. Here's Ari. Huh?
You seem very excited
Of
about
course,
this.
of course, it's a good. I mean, they beat Sri Lanka and Pakistan. It's a wonderful time for cricket Zimbabwe and cricket Namibia, indeed. Let's have a look at the sports package from Ari.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with cricket news. It is the T20 World Cup for men taking place in Australia, and for South African Proteas, good news, they're back on winning ways, beating Bangladesh by 104 runs, and it was South Africa that batted first. They made 205 for the loss of 5 wickets in their allotted 20 overs, and Bangladesh then bowled out for 101 runs. It was Andrich Nortje for the Proteas that best with the ball. He got figures of 4 wickets for 10 runs in just 3.3 overs. Batting, it was South Africa's Riley Rousseau that had a brilliant innings, 109 unbeaten runs from 56 deliveries. In Group 1, it is very closely contested at the moment. It is Australia that play against England, a very important game on Friday. That Group 1 is quite open now because the game between New Zealand and Afghanistan that had no result because of rain. Also, the surprise loss of England against Ireland that also froze open that side of the draw. On to some tennis news. There's 2 tournaments being played at the moment on the men's ATP circuit. The first one is the Vienna Open, also called the Erste Bank Open. And the results from the tournament is number 4 seed Taylor Fritz of the USA. He's been knocked out in the round of 16, and that was by Denis Shapovalov of Canada. Also, Daniel Medvedev, the number 1 seed, safely through. He beat Nicholas Basilashvili by 6-2 and 6-2. And then Stefanos Tsitsipas, number 2 seed of Greece, he is safely through, beating Denis Novak of Austria by 7-6 and 6-2. Other men's tournament on the ATP Tour currently taking place is the Swiss Indoor Tournament. And in the round of 16 also, it is Carlos Alcaraz that safely through. He beat Netherlands' Botic van der Zandschulp in that was 6-4 and 6-2. And Pablo Carrera Busta, the countryman also from Spain of Alcaraz, he beat Dominic Stricker in 3 sets. And then lastly, Holger Rune from Denmark. He had a bit of a surprise, or was responsible for a bit of a surprise, beating the number 7 seed Alex de Manier of Australia by 6-2 and 7-5. Continuing international sports news with Formula One racing news, and according to reports, it is Red Bull and the FIA, the Formula One governing body, that reached an agreement that is related to their sanction with the budget cap that they went over in 2021. And that is not known what the sanction is at the moment, but it seems like Red Bull is ready to sign that agreement. It will still be seen if Mercedes-Benz will accept that. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton lost the title last year to Max Verstappen, and they will definitely not be happy if the sanction is not for taking points away from Red Bull. So that is all still happening in the world of Formula One. Also news in Formula One is that Audi looks set to join Formula One in the year 2026. And Audi announced that they will partner with Sauber, and that will Audi will provide the power unit for the cars. And that will be from 2026, and still 2024 and 2025, it will be Sauber that will be powered by Ferrari. To conclude today's international sports news, golf news, and it is the LIV Golf Series that will have the last tournament of the season this coming weekend. It is the breakaway Saudi-backed league that will have a very large amount of money that they will play for this coming weekend, all of $50 million on the line. Every tournament before this one was $25 million. They play in teams. There's 48 players that will tee off on a gunshot start, and they will play 3 rounds, but they're in teams of 4. And the winning team of 4 will earn $60 million, dividing it between the 4 golfers. The golf tournament will be played at the Trump National Golf Club that is in Miami, and it is President Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump of the USA, that is set to be present at the tournament as well. So that is the international sports news for now. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning this morning and throughout the week. Let's have a look at the highlights from the broadcast. South Africa prosecutors drop mass rape charges. No evidence of Santon terrorism threat, says South Africa government. South Africa to swallow part of Eskom's debt to keep it afloat. Those have been our stories.
And with that, we've come to the end of our show. Do remember that Africa Good Morning is repeated on our 1up2 website and our DSTV channel 285 and our Gotv channel 94 between 8:30 and 9 a.m. every weekday. I am Glenn Rashipura.
And I am Ashwin Berry. Swedaja Kanaka.